The production buckets are incredibly useful. Let's talk about how they can work in your shop to keep your production moving smoothly and seamlessly. So first of all, it's important to know that no two companies have the same set of buckets. And so when you create your account, we're going to help you think through your buckets, and we're going to be sure that you have a set of buckets that work for you and work for your production flow. And once you have set up your buckets, we're going to set deadlines on all of the buckets. And so let's just kind of talk really quickly about how to set up the buckets, where to go to do that, where to go to set up the deadlines, and then we'll talk about how to use the production buckets. So we're going to scroll here to the top, go to the admin section, and then we'll go to StoneSpot settings, and then we'll go to production buckets. And here is a list of all of our current production buckets, and of course we can remove a bucket if we want to. So maybe we'll remove this order processed, and we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And then we'll create a new one. We can create a new one right here by clicking on Add Another Bucket. And we'll call this one Ready to Go. And then here in the Status Visible to Client, potentially we maybe don't want to have our client see this, and so we can type something else. So maybe we'll have it say In Progress. And then we can click Add Production Bucket, and then we can change where that production bucket shows up. So here it is at the bottom of the list. If we want to move it up, we can just click on the little arrows right here, or we can move it back down. So we'll move it back down here, and then we will click the Save Order Statuses. Now if we come back to the Manage Orders page and look at the bottom of our production buckets, we have a new bucket called Ready to Go. Now every bucket has a deadline set on it. You can see in this bucket there's one order, and that order is overdue, which means that it's been sitting in this hold for payment, on hold for payment bucket longer than the deadline allows. And we can set deadlines for each of the buckets by coming here to the admin section, and then going to StoneSpot settings, and then to bucket deadlines. And if we scroll down, we'll find our production buckets here. And we can set a deadline. Let's go ahead and set a deadline on that bucket that we just created. So instead of 3 days, we're going to change that. We're going to say 1 day, and we'll save that. Now, if there were orders in that bucket that had been in that bucket longer than 1 day, then we would start to see this red notice right here. And if we click into a bucket where we have some that are overdue, you can see the ones that are overdue have a red timer, and that lets us know that they're overdue, they're beyond the deadline. So how do we use the Manage Orders page? Let's come back out and go to the Manage Orders page, and we're going to pretend that I work at a monument shop with you, and I'm in charge of sandblasting, and you are in charge of stencil application. So every day at the beginning of the day, I would log into StoneSpot, and I would click into the sandblasting bucket. And I'm always going to work on the order that's at the top here. And so if I do that, then the orders that need to be sent out next, or the ones that are the most imminent, are going to always be at the top of my bucket. And so I'm going to sandblast the Amanda Jones order, or pardon me, the Tom Jones order, and then I will move it into the next status. And I'm just going to continue working through my list until, hopefully, I finish the list at some point. This usually doesn't happen. Usually the list is just always churning. But if everybody works on the order that is at the top of their list and just does their work as fast as they can, and then moves the order into somebody else's bucket, then that's going to make our production as efficient as possible. Now, if you were in charge of the stencil application bucket, then at the beginning of the day you'd come in and you'd click into the stencil application bucket. And again, you're just going to work on the order that's at the top of your list, And when you finish with that one, you're going to move it on to the next bucket. Let's say it's sandblasting. And then that will show up in my bucket. And I'm going to then do my part on it and move it into somebody else's bucket. Now, in most shops, people have more than one bucket. They have responsibility for more than one bucket. But your goal is to just keep the number of orders in your buckets, the ones that you're responsible for. You're trying to keep that number as low as possible. And if you ever see one that's overdue, then you want to find out what's going on with that one and be sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks.